So picture this. It's 6 a.m., you're grabbing your morning coffee, and you're remembering how absolutely invincible you felt last night. Seriously, you felt exactly like 86 Mike Tyson hitting that bag. But as you lift your mug, reality hits. Your elbows click, your shoulders groan, and your left knee tells you in no uncertain terms that it absolutely hates you today. So why does this keep happening?
Let's be totally honest for a second. Boxing after 40? It's basically a superpower. You've earned this incredible level of mental discipline, focus, and work ethic that your 20-year-old self could literally only dream of. But here's the cold, hard truth. Your joints do not have a reset button. At this stage in the game, your body just doesn't forgive bad mechanics anymore. If you're out there training with the exact same reckless abandon you had at 21, you're gonna end up spending way more time paying physical therapy co-pays than actually hitting the bag.
Okay, let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap for today. We're correcting 3 specific biomechanical errors: the phantom snap, the concrete feet, and the soft wrist. First up is mistake number 1, the phantom snap. This one is all about protecting your elbows and shoulders. Now, when we watch the pros, their jabs look incredible, right? Like lightning fast whips. And naturally, when we're shadowboxing, we want to mimic that crazy whip-like speed. But doing that actually hides a massive danger. Think about the basic physics of a punch. When you hit a heavy bag, that dense bag absorbs the kinetic energy. But when you punch thin air, your own joints are forced to act as the brakes. If you throw a full force jab and totally lock out your elbow at the end, man, your elbow joint is taking 100% of that hyperextension stress. Imagine doing that 500 times a week. You are basically fast-tracking yourself to severe tendonitis or bone spurs. That full 100% elbow lockout means your fragile joint is taking all the punishment. What you absolutely need instead is a 95% microbend. With a microbend, your arm still looks totally straight to anyone watching, but the elbow itself stays slightly soft. So instead of bone and cartilage just crashing together, your muscles are actually doing the work of slowing down the punch. So how do we actually fix this? First, never lock your joints out completely. Always keep that 95% microbend. Second, you've got to use your upper back muscles, so your lats and rear delts, to pull the punch back. Let your muscles decelerate the force, not your cartilage. And finally, keep your shadowboxing to around 70% power. Shadowboxing is for form, rhythm, and flow. Save that raw 100% power for the heavy bag, where all that kinetic energy can actually be safely absorbed. Moving on to mistake number 2, the concrete feet. This section is all about protecting your knees and hips. If you ever wake up with a dull ache in your lead, knee, or hip after throwing a ton of hooks, listen up. We've all heard the classic boxing advice. Power comes from the ground up. You have to twist your hips to get power on your hooks and crosses. And hey, that's fundamentally true, but I really gotta warn you, if you follow this advice while committing the sin of concrete feet, you're setting yourself up for a disastrous biomechanical failure. Here's why. If your shoe is glued down to a rubber mat and you violently twist your hips for power, your knee suddenly becomes the pivot point. And your knee is a hinge joint, plain and simple. Nature designed it to bend forward and backward. It is absolutely 100% not designed to twist side to side like a bottle cap. Forcing a violent hip twist while your shoe is glued to the floor, that is exactly how you destroy your meniscus and your ACL over time. Leaving that shoe glued just traps all that agonizing rotational force right in the knee joint. The correct technique is lifting the heel, what old school trainers call squishing the bug. You lift the heel, rotate smoothly on the ball of your foot, and that allows the hip to turn without grinding the knee into dust. So here's your exact mechanical checklist to fix this today. Step 1, every single time you throw a hook or a cross, release the heel, squish that bug. Step 2, check your footwear. If you're training on rubber mats, avoid high-grip running shoes. They grip way too much. You need smooth-soled boxing shoes or minimalist trainers that actually let you rotate safely. And step 3, unload the weight. Just shift your body weight slightly to the opposite leg as you start the turn, making sure that pivoting heel lifts cleanly every single time. All right, finally, let's talk about mistake number 3, the soft wrist, which is all about protecting your hands and wrists. This error almost always sneaks in on the heavy bag when fatigue hits. Usually around round 5 or 6, you get tired and suddenly your perfect alignment just starts to slip. Think about this. A typical heavy bag weighs anywhere from 80 to 130 pounds. Imagine all that force crashing backward into your arm when you strike something that dense. I literally cannot stress this enough. That much weight colliding with even a slightly bent wrist is an absolute recipe for disaster. When your alignment slips, you get a soft wrist impact. Now, a tiny bend might not feel like a massive deal in the heat of the moment, but it is jamming the delicate, tiny carpal bones in your wrist and heavily straining your tendons. And worse, because your arm is out of alignment, that shockwave of misaligned energy travels straight up your arm, violently rattling your elbow and your shoulder. A momentary lapse in your wrist form actually damages your entire kinetic chain.
A relaxed, bent wrist creates a weak structure that is practically guaranteed to buckle under heavy pressure. What you need, is to create a straight, rigid skeletal pillar running all the way from your forearm straight through to your knuckles. That is structurally sound. Here are your vital alignment checks to build that perfect pillar. First, stay relaxed while you're moving, but clench your fist tightly right before impact. That tight squeeze naturally stabilizes the wrist. Second, aim to land with your two dominant knuckles, your index and middle fingers. That lines up the bones in your hand perfectly with the radius and ulna bones in your forearm. And step 3, if you're over 40, wrapping your hands is never optional. Always use 180-inch semi-elastic wraps to support that vital wrist structure.
Let's start to wrap this up by talking about the longevity game.
Boxing after 40 isn't about seeing who can destroy their body the fastest. Leave that to the guys in their 20s. It's about being the smartest, most efficient version of yourself. So to recap, keep a 95% micro bend to save your elbows, release your heels to protect those knees, and maintain a rigid, aligned wrist to save your hands. And here is the absolute best part of all this. By protecting your joints this way, you're not just preventing an injury. Because your kinetic chain is finally perfectly aligned, you are actually going to generate way more power in your punches. So I gotta ask, which of these 3 joints is screaming at you the most after a heavy workout? Think about it, implement these fixes, and start playing the long game.